Yeah, let me. I'll start recording. Your frame rate dipped on me pretty hard. Oh, there it goes. I think it just had a hiccup. All right, hey, we're recording, so whenever you want to start off.
Alrighty. All right, well, guys, so I have a very special guest with me today who's also handling all the technical stuff because I'm garbage. LR. We're
What
going to be
up?
talking about our top 10 favorite directors. I'm excited to do another collaboration. We did our top 5 Criterion releases a couple of months ago. Now, for my list, say there's that I like Bergman, Fellini, Tarantino, Scorsese, but not on my list. And yeah, so you guys can judge me. We'll see how that goes, but I'm going to let LR take it over.
Yeah, what up? Name's LR Smith. I do YouTube stuff under LR Smith, and yeah, if you're not subscribed to Dylan's channel, definitely do it because he makes great content. But thank you for having me on, and I did my top 10. My top 5 I feel pretty good about. The 6 through 10, it could be a bunch of other people, but I feel pretty good about my 6 through 10 though. So
Start with number 10. So my number 10 was actually going to be Andres Veganstev, but I wanted to be as truthful as I possibly could. And I saw Alex Garland's new film Civil War, which is getting a trailer this week, which I'm super excited about. I have to go with Alex Garland for number 10. I mean, Devs, the miniseries. He also wrote Dread. I heard that he may or may not have directed that. It seems like it's sort of like a Tobe Hooper, Steven Spielberg situation, like Poltergeist. But I mean, you look at his filmography. It's short, but it's very sweet. Like Ex Machina, terrific film. Annihilation is absolutely superb. And whether or not you like men or not, I mean, it's just it was a very thought provoking film. A film that even with a rewatch, I was still picking up on little things. So I cannot wait to see what he does with Civil War. And I feel like he's an accessible director, but at the same time, he does sort of add these little niche things for people that normal casual people can watch the story and enjoy it, but for people that want an extra layer, I just think Alex Garland is the perfect director for that.
it's also worth noting he wrote 28 Days Later, Sunshine, and he also wrote the video game Enslaved: Odyssey to the West, which is a pretty cool game from the PS3 360 era. So
That
I love Alex Garland. 20 not 28 Days Later. Men was really good. Annihilation is it's one of my favorite of the past decade. Ex Machina is really cool, so I'm pretty excited to see anything that he's coming out with, like directing. So I haven't seen the trailer to Civil War yet, but I'm sure it's probably going to be pretty cool. Hopefully,
Annihilation. Do you have the 4K for Annihilation?
no, I just have the Blu-ray to it.
I recently upgraded to the 4K, and it was worth it. It was well worth it.
Okay. Yeah, the 4K I've been having, like, I haven't really like upgraded much to 4K other than just like buying new releases at 4K. So that's something like later down the road I might start start doing. But there's so many movies to watch and
Absolutely.
buy.
Your number 10?
My number 10 is another Ohio boy. So I got to go with my home state here, but Jim Jarmusch, who's from Akron. I've only seen it, out of my top 10 list. There's only one director I've seen every movie from, and but Jim Jarmusch I've seen half. I've seen seven. I haven't seen seven, but the seven I've seen I've all loved. I just Jim Jarmusch has this really dry sense of humor that's kind of infused with like a little bit of like rock and roll kind of like vibe to it, and I just love his stuff. He's like the film director version of like Iggy Pop in a way. Um, but yeah, he's got great stuff. Like Ghost Dog is really great with Forrest Whitaker. Mystery Train is a recent film I just watched not too long ago that was really fun. It's kind of like an anthology movie. Coffee and Cigarettes is an anthology movie. But like my two favorites is Only Lovers Left Alive, which is just a really cool uh, kind of rockish vibe vampire movie that isn't really horror. It's kind of more like a melodrama with like some comedy elements and some horror elements mixed into it. And then I love, and I know it's a lot more mixed received, but The Dead Don't Die. I thought that movie was just absolutely hilarious. It's like Jim Jarmusch's really dry, like Sahara Desert humor through the whole thing, and it just had me rolling, and I love it. It's like endlessly watchable, like all-star cast. He also did Patterson with Adam Driver. That's really good. Nice little small self-contained story, and yeah, just cool director. Really dig his stuff and kind of just enjoy his vibe, and I really mesh with his sense of humor. So that's my number 10, Jim Jarmusch.
Speaking of him, he's got so much range. None of his films, while he might still have like the same style and stuff, he really does do different things. I mean, he's got a zombie film, an anthology
Mm-hmm.
film, a romance film,
A vampire
but
film, a
actually,
samurai
Mystery Train.
film.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And I recently bought Mystery Train. Criterion. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but
I think
you've
you'll
piqued
dig
my
it.
interest. I need to watch. You
It's
think
like an
so?
8 out of 10. Yeah, it's like very steeped in like Memphis and that whole like Elvis lore and stuff. It's pretty fun.
Okay, sweet. Well, my number 9 is Glazer.
Jonathan Glazer.
Jonathan Glazer. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really. I mean, he only has 4 films. The films that he's made, they're just so impactful. Sexy Beast, I think, is probably the more mainstream. It's I wouldn't say it's your typical gangster flick, but it very much so is a gangster flick. It's very fast paced. It's short, I think, at like 80 something minutes. So it's an easy watch. But then you have Birth with Nicole Kidman, Arliss Johnson. That film is, golly, it's so good, but the critics and the audiences when it came out, they hated it. On Rotten Tomatoes, like a 30 or 40% on both sides, which I think is just insane. Recently, one of my actors that I work with, I let him watch Birth, and I thought he was just going to enjoy it, because he had seen
Mm-hmm.
Under the Skin and Sexy Beast, and he wants to put a poster of it in his movie room.
Nice.
So I think it is finding an audience. I think people nowadays that watch it, I think it has a really good chance of finding a cult following if it doesn't already have one.
Mm-hmm.
And then Under the Skin, Scarlett Johansson, I think that's probably the one that most people know about. And that's the one that a lot of people talk about. But I had the opportunity to see Zone of Interest, and Zone of Interest was completely different from all of his other films, just like the film before it and the film before that. And I just feel like he's almost revolutionary in a way, where he might be as mainstream as other directors that are on my list, but I feel like his name is going to be the one that sort of goes down in history. I feel like he's ahead of his time, I guess you could say. Which you have a few directors that are like that, with their peers. There's that one or maybe 2 or 3 directors that are just miles ahead of their time.
Mm-hmm. It
Gregor
takes them like 10
Tarkovsky,
years to make a
something like
movie.
that. Exactly. But yeah, I absolutely love Jonathan Glazer, and I'm excited to watch his next film when I'm like 45. So
I've only seen Birth and Under the Skin. I haven't gotten around to seeing Sexy Beast yet, but I'm very excited to see Zone of Interest. I don't know if we'll go out and see it in theaters, but it's definitely going to be like a day one Blu-ray if we don't. Under the Skin, I remember like I feel like the trailer led me into like a misconception for it, so I had to like revisit it. And on the revisit, I enjoyed it a lot more. But Birth, I came across in a really weird way. I found the DVD to it at Dollar General. And I was like, "What's this with Nicole Kidman?" I was like, "This is weird," and it was like $1.99 or something like that. So I bought it and watched it, and I love it.
still,
Yeah, I think Birth is my favorite Glacier movie out of the two that I've seen. I mean, I like it better than Under the Skin. It's just a really, even with like its kind of quirks and kind of the weird nature of it, because you can raise the question of like, well, he only really knows about her because, no, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's definitely like you can definitely try to pick apart the plot, but like just the ideas and the concepts of, that reincarnation mixed with that like believing it and that whole like weird era of is he or is he not, it just worked really well. And it's I was actually talking to a buddy of mine about this last night about Birth. We was talking about how we both kind of think it's like one of Nicole Kidman's like best performances.
yeah, I can definitely see that. I think it's funny you got that for $1.99 at the Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
I think the DVD on Amazon is like $24.
Really? Yeah, yeah, no.
Blu-ray for it. So
I
yeah,
found
you practically stole it.
Yeah, I found it. I was like it was somewhere around like 2010 to 2012, I would say, probably somewhere around there is when I found it. But yeah, yeah, it was like $1.99 because that's what the Dollar General, like the back in the day, the DVDs were all like $1.99 and the Blu-rays were $4.95. So yeah, I've had it for a little while.
I know the Body Snatchers for $5, but I haven't been to the dollar store in a long time.
They yeah, it's you don't find much good there anymore, but for a little while you could find some pretty interesting stuff. So,
Crayons?
huh?
The dollar store?
Oh, Criterion's at the dollar store. I don't know. I
Criterion's
think
at the dollar store.
yeah, you can probably find out of if you can find any of them, it's probably Curious Case of Benjamin Button. That's probably the only one
Most
you
likely,
can
yeah.
find. You want me to move on to my number 9? You cut out. Did you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. My number 9 is Shinya Tsukamoto. I'll do a shameless plug here, but I did a whole box set video of the Solid Metal Nightmares box set of Shinya Tsukamoto. Since then, I've seen all but 3 of his films. I think he did Nightmare Detective 1 and 2 I haven't seen, and then I haven't seen the third Tetsuo Iron Man movie. But I've seen everything else minus the where he directs a segment for an anthology. Shinya Tsukamoto is just crazy. He's just a crazy person who got to make movies. His movies are absolutely wild, and he kind of does a little bit like Jim Jarmusch, where he kind of goes through a lot of different genres. Like the Iron Man, Tetsuo Iron Man is like this weird cyber horror, body horror. Like if you would take David Cronenberg and drench him in like aluminum. And then you have like Tokyo Fist, that's like a boxing movie, and then Bullet Ballet, it's like a gangster movie. Then you have Gemini, that's like a weird haunted house movie. He just does a bunch of like different stuff. He has Killing, which is a straight up samurai movie. He's a really interesting director, but he's made some really sweet stuff. He has a certain kind of like energy to his films that I don't feel like a lot of other directors bring to the table. And like he has some really interesting like shot composition too. Personally, for me, Bullet Ballet is probably my favorite of his, but he did a shorter film, I think it's under an hour, called Haze, that is like genuinely, if you are claustrophobic, this movie will ruin your life kind of thing, where it's like, it's basically about this guy. Huh?
It in the box set
Yep.
that you were talking about?
Yep. Haze is in the box set. It's like, it's basically about this guy going through like, it's kind of like a representation of like literally like going through hell, and he's like stuck in these like tight corridors and stuff. Like there's like a scene that sticks with me where he's got to like open his mouth to like slide his head through where a pipe is, and his like teeth grinding along the way and stuff. It's pretty wild. And then you have like Kotoko, which is a really good movie of his too, about like mental illness, and the way he frames mental illness is really interesting and really well done. But yeah, Shinya Tsukamoto is awesome, and if you want to get into him, Arrow did that really sweet box set, Solid Metal Nightmares, and then Mondo Macabros actually put out a couple of his other movies like Gemini and Haruko the Goblin. So, which Haruko the Goblin's like a horror comedy, so he's all over the place. But I love his films. He's a really interesting director, and he's got a new movie coming out called Shadow of Fire. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add on him other than I've seen Tetsuo Iron Man, but I kind of want to get that box set now because I know exactly which one you're talking about. It comes with it doesn't come with Iron Man 3, correct?
No, just 1 and 2.
I'll have to get filmography a little bit more because I think Tetsuo Iron Man is the only film that I've seen from him, and I'm watch Body Hammer probably soon. Me and my practical effects guy for Pesadilla, we watched Tetsuo after we got done with Godzilla and had a little.
Nice.
So I'm kind of a noob when it comes to him.
Yeah, he does a lot, especially in his early work. He does a lot of practical stuff and really cool like custom makeup and stuff. So he's definitely a pretty good one. And that box set, dude's got like a bunch. It's got The Adventure of Denji Kozo, Tetsuo 2, Tokyo Fist, Bullet Ballet, Snake of June, Vital, Haze, Kotoko, and Killing. So it's like a huge chunk of his filmography is in that set. So
pretty essential. Like if somebody wanted to get into his filmography, okay.
Yeah,
I might have to check it out.
Yeah, if you want to get into his filmography, that is the way to go for sure.
Well, my number 8, which one thing I did want to clarify is if after I see Poor Things from Yorgos Lanthimos, I could see him making it to my top 10. I just remembered that he wasn't on here, and there's a reason for it. I'd say he's probably like 11 or 12. Probably above Andres Vegan Stev, but let's go ahead and actually talk about my number 8. I just had to throw Yorgos a plug in there.
Yorgos is somewhere on the outside of mine too. He's somewhere floating around. Could have been in the top 10 too. So Not to cut you off, sorry.
His films, no, you're good. I like Dogville. I like The Favorite, The Lobster. Like I love his films, but I feel like he need that big masterpiece, to put him in the top 10. Just because I know what film like if Poor Things ends up being as good as people are saying it is, I could
Mhm.
see him moving up because I feel like he's not missed over the last decade. But anyway, I'll get to my number 8. Number 8, who is not Yorgos, but Mikhail Haneke.
Oh, Hanky Chan.
Heard it
Right
pronounced
on.
both. Yeah, yeah. He is. So the funny thing is I ended up buying. I ended up getting Funny Games. Ended up getting White Ribbon. And then I ended up Amour. And I ended up watching those, and I thought that those were going to be the only films that I watched from him, just because those were
Mhm.
the ones that people talked about the most. And just falling in love with him, and I ended up buying his whole entire filmography. I
Nice.
actually bought his first 3 films twice. I bought them. I bought some janky South Korean versions because I couldn't find them anywhere, and then Criterion came out and did a trilogy of his first 3
Mhm.
films. Now he is the type of director where I feel like he has made some duds, but I feel like he's also made some masterpieces. Like, excuse me, The Piano Teacher. The Piano Teacher is probably one of my favorite films. It's exhilarating. It's very taboo. It definitely touches on subject matter that you wouldn't see a normal film touch on, but it does it in a very unapologetic way. You know
Mhm.
how some films, if they're talking about, say, for instance, an older person getting with a younger person, or talking about like SA, stuff like that, they'll do it in a very approachable way to an audience to where you're not making them completely uncomfortable. Mikhail Haneke just says, "Screw it! I'm going to make you feel as uncomfortable as possible and see how much money I can get out of it." And
Right.
and that's why I love him so much. And Funny Games, the first time that I watched Funny Games, I watched both versions. And I did a video about both versions. Shameless plug on my end. I would definitely watch the original version of Funny Games because in the video I talked about how the first one was not censored and the 2007 remake was, because there's a certain scene, I don't want to spoil it, but they actually show it in the 1997 version. They don't in the 2007 version. Somebody actually commented and said that was wrong, but no, it's right. And Funny Games, I'll never forget the first time that I watched Funny Games. I still think about it when I think of that one specific scene. Have you seen Funny Games?
Yeah, out of his films, I don't know how to pronounce his name either. I think it's like I don't know if it's Michael Haneke or Michelle Hanukkah. I'm not sure, but out of his films, I've seen both Funny Games and Piano Teacher. That's all I've seen so far. And I own Time of the Wolf, but I haven't got around to watching it yet. I
Some of the
love
Wolf is really
of
good.
all of them. So I love all 3 of
You
them
know
I've
what I'm
seen.
talking about with the. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, you're
Uh,
good.
with the Funny Games, one is sort of censored and one isn't. It's the scene. Spoil it for people. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm just going to shut up now.
I'm trying to remember like what scene, because like I watched them back to back too. When I first saw them, I watched the original and then the remake with Naomi Watts. I think it's Naomi Watts, right? It's in that.
Aftermath. It's the aftermath of something that happens to one of the characters. They're showing NASCAR, I think, on the TV screen.
Oh yeah, they're
In the
in the
2000s.
first one they're playing NASCAR while it happens, and in the remake, are they still playing NASCAR in the remake?
I think so. I think they're still doing some sort of race, but in the remake, the TV is hiding the aftermath.
Yeah, and you can kind of see it in the TV of the remake, right? Or is it? Do I have it backwards
You have it backwards. The original shows you what actually happened, and then in the
in the
remake, you
TV?
know what happens. It just sort of covers it up. Yeah.
Okay, because I couldn't remember. Yeah, it was because one of them you kind of see the reflection of it in the TV, and the other one I don't think you do. I think the other one, I think that instead of showing NASCAR, I think they show is it maybe Formula One? I can't remember.
I don't know. It's been so long since I watched them. I did the same thing you did. I watched them back to back, but it's been
Hmm.
like, golly, I think almost a year and a half years.
Yeah, it's probably around when I last watched. It was probably about a year and a half to 2 years ago. But out of his films, like if I wanted to like go check out another one like tomorrow that isn't Piano Teacher, I guess like because I've heard great things about Amour and White Ribbon and Cachet. So like, what one would you
I would
should I go watch?
say make a more your next date night movie.
Okay.
And if you're looking for a film to just chill and relax, I'm going to be completely honest. I was going to say The White Ribbon, but I would probably have to say Cachet or Time of the Wolf.
Okay. Yeah, Time of Wolf I already have. I did find Cache at a half price books one day, but the disc was pretty chewed up, so I ended up passing on it.
They're doing a 4K restoration.
Okay, cool. I'll just wait for that then. You got more on
Extremely silent.
yeah. You got
I'm sorry.
more
I think there's a delay.
there,
I'm sorry.
so with Discord there is like a slight delay between us. But sometimes like I have where you'll say like one word or something like that and it's not like coming through. Cuz like your video on my end too is also pretty choppy. See, like, did you say something there? Cuz nothing came through.
No, I just said oof. I was going to say anytime that I go like extremely quiet, that you're good to go for the next one.
Okay. Okay. I just didn't want to, if you had something else to say, I didn't want to like jump into the next thing. My number 8 is Darren Aronofsky. Darren Aronofsky is probably like one of the earlier, like when I was getting really into film, one of the earlier like, filmmakers. I'm learning directors and stuff. I would say he was probably like one of the earlier ones I learned about because of Requiem for a Dream and The Wrestler, which The Wrestler is my favorite movie by him. But yeah, I went pretty like deep into his filmography. The only one I haven't seen still is The Fountain, just because I haven't found a DVD or Blu-ray copy of it anywhere, and I don't know, I kind of just want to buy it before trying to stream it. But I've found even the movies of his that didn't really land with me, I still find something interesting about his directorial style. But he's also made just like I think The Wrestler is insane. The Whale from last year is super good. He can kind of take actors and kind of revamp them and reutilize them in ways that I don't think you really see very much. I mean, Requiem for a Dream has one of the Wayans brothers in it. His earliest film, Pi, his directorial debut, is a really interesting, like lo-fi black and white film. And yeah, I love his directorial style. He kind of tackles a lot of like biblical themes as well. So that's kind of interesting the way he takes on, like, I know Noah's was pretty mixed, but I thought Noah's a really cool kind of centrist take on a biblical story that also had some pretty great performances in it, even if some of the CG was kind of wonky. He's got a new film coming out called Postcard from Earth that I just now found out about pulling up his IMDb. So that would be interesting. I'll have to keep an eye on that. But yeah, I think he's a great director, and I feel like he's like a safe bet whenever he's making something, just because like I just feel like you're gonna at least get something interesting out of it by the end of it. So yeah, that's my my number 8 would be Aronofsky.
Thing about The Whale, which is one thing that I really do appreciate about Aronofsky. The Whale, when I first watched the trailer for it, the experience that I had was completely different than what I thought I was going into. The whole third act of The Whale, I guess you could say the third act, blew me away. I was not expecting it at all. So I think, regardless of what people say about The Whale, I know a lot of people. I was seeing some articles where people were saying Brandon Fraser deserved a better movie. I think that's completely false. I feel like The Whale is. I think The Whale was perfect for him. Really,
I agree, and I think Aronofsky utilized a one location setting really well, and then also humanized a pretty. I don't know if humanize is the right word, but allowed you to sympathize and empathize with somebody who has a pretty debilitating disorder that I feel like the kind of stigma is like because of like TLC, you know what I mean? There's like a certain stigma, like freak show around it, and he really does, like, I guess humanize is the right way to, with a character like that and allow you to care about this character, and you kind of get put in the shoes of his caretaker and his daughter because of how Aronofsky kind of weaves the story. And I mean, a lot of that comes from writing, but you also have the direction of how he's timing things mixed with that whole movie's in one location, and I never got bored of looking at it. You know what I mean? He really smartly used it, and the choice to have a narrower aspect ratio, kind of adding, because it kind of made Brendan Fraser larger than life in the screen because he's a big guy, so he's taking up most of the frame. But it also adds that claustrophobia of being stuck in that one location. It's just great direction. And then something like Mother, to like have that ballsy ending of Mother, you know what I mean? Like it's a pretty risky ending to like Mother, and or to tackle Noah in the way that he did is yeah, just really great stuff. So I love his work. I need to watch The Fountain at some point.
Is the only film from him that I've not seen as well. So, okay, you ready for my number 7?
Yep.
Well, at my number 7, I'm actually extremely excited to talk about this guy. So my number 7 is Todd Fields or Todd Field. He only 3 films. That's like a theme that's been going on with my list. Is these directors only have like 4 or 5 films under their belt? Well, Todd Field only has 3, and he was an actor in Eyes Wide Shut, and I think he did. He's done a lot of voiceover work. I can't really pinpoint exactly what, but I know him better for his films that he's done, which is In the Bedroom, Little Children Are. Little Children is a masterpiece. It's in my top 10 favorite films of all time. In the Bedroom is one of the best directorial debuts that I've ever seen. And Tar, golly, just Kate Blanchett was absolutely electrifying in that movie. It was my most anticipated film for last year. I When I went in, I brought a notebook with me, and I was actually taking notes because I had listened to so many reviews about the film. People were saying it was a very smart and very intelligent film.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this great idea where I was going to make a video about it, and it was going to be like 20 minutes long, and I was going to go through and pinpoint everything. I think the video was probably like 5 minutes long, and I didn't talk about nothing. But it was funny because after we got done watching Tar, one of my friends walked out of the theater, and he looked at me, and he was like, "Was I like not big brained enough to understand that film?" And I think that's a testament to who Todd Field actually is, not even as a director, but as a person. Um, he stated that he might not make another film, and I think he does commercial work. He is
Okay.
one of those directors where I don't think he even necessarily. I mean, I know he does it for the art, but it feels like he only makes a film when he has something to say, and you don't really get many directors like that. Which I think this is a pretty big compliment in itself. Have you heard about Blood Meridian being the unadaptable book for a
No,
movie?
no, I've not heard of that.
Carmack McCarthy did No Country for Old Men, and the Coen brothers did
And The
that film.
Road,
Well,
right?
Blood Meridian, yes, and the Road.
Okay.
Well, Blood Meridian is probably his most well-known book, I would say, and they've been trying to find a director that can actually put that film on the screen. And Todd Field was actually supposed to do it, and he never did. And the fact that they had a director locked down, ready to do it, uh, I think says a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
Todd Field, if Tar is his last film, so be it. He went on a high note. I think one of the that he really does touch on in all of his films is he sort of touches on family in a way, but at the same time he touches on the distance between relationships. One thing that I've noticed in the bedroom and Little Children and Tar is it seems like the central character is usually very separated from the one that they love, or they end up getting very separated from them. And
Mm-hmm.
there's always an obstacle that's sort of in the way, that's sort of sucking our lead character and I feel like that's just very hard to execute that without distracting the audience. And I feel like Todd Field does it so well to where it's so nonchalant to the point to where you're not even thinking about it. And then you get 2 hours into his film and you're like, wow, this character's life completely sucks now. And it was not distracting at all. So yeah, Todd Field, I absolutely love him. My spirit animal. There's really nothing else to say, man.
I've only seen Tar of his films, and Tar is it probably in my top of 2022. I really loved it. I thought it was great. I actually can't wait to watch it again. But yeah, I haven't seen Little Children or In the Bedroom yet, but it's they're in that ever growing watch list. You know what I mean? The never ending watch list.
The
Uh,
never-ending watch list. I know
yeah.
exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, Tar's really good. I can't recommend Tar enough too. So it's cool pick. I got it. Yeah, I got to check out his other stuff for sure. My number 7 is, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, but Denis Villeneuve. I don't know. It's French Canadian. Denis Villeneuve or Denis Villeneuve. The director of Enemy, Prisoners, Sicario, Arrival, Blade Runner, Dune Part 1, Part 2 coming out. Also did Polytechnique, Incendies, which those two I have not seen. I have Incendies, I just haven't watched it yet, but I do want to check out his French Canadian releases. But, I mean, to me, Blade Runner 2049 is a 10 out of 10. It's on par with the original Blade Runner. I'm a huge fan of both of them. Dune was really cool. I cannot wait for Dune Part 2. So we have a complete experience. Arrival is really cool. Sicario is awesome. Really love Sicario for like a cop thriller crime kind of movie. Prisoners is, I still think, probably the best Hugh Jackman performance. that movie's rough. It's a rough watch to sit through because it goes through so many different emotions and heartbreak. And then that scene in the bathroom where he has Paul Dano's character and Terrence Howard. Yeah, that scene is just iconic. And then Enemy is like this weird movie. It's like the black sheep of his films, but it's really interesting, really well shot. Has a lot of like surrealist and kind of metaphorical, like visual metaphors and stuff. That's really interesting, and it's a fun movie to pick apart. But I just love his directorial style. But he is a director that can just make CGI work. You know, there's like directors like him and James Cameron that, you know, you watch the 100 and 200 however $1 million movie like The Flash and you're like, this looks like crap. But then you can watch Dune, Blade Runner, or to James Cameron's Avatar and you're just like, no, it looks great. And I feel like he really knows how to utilize those CGI elements and kind of blend them with actual environments. And yeah, it's great. I love his directorial style. He dives more into the sci-fi, which I'm a big fan of sci-fi. So to have a director really kind of doing their all with sci-fi is really fun too. So super excited for Dune Part 2. And yeah, I love Denis Villeneuve. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
I've always called him Denis Villeneuve. That's sort of what I've always said. Wow, when you were talking about his filmography, you reminded me how much I really enjoy films. I
yeah.
have all of his films on physical media except for August 32nd on Earth. I cannot find the film for the life of me. I do not know where to look at it, or look for it. Hopefully, it gets a release sometime soon. I mean, I really do want to watch it. It's his directorial debut, but uh, I think it's funny because his French Canadian films compared to his more mainstream stuff, his film, the shooting one, correct? That's the one that's like 50 something minutes long.
Are you Incendies? Or I'm not sure because his French Canadian stuff I'm not very familiar with.
Or break. And then after that 9 year break, he kind of just blew up. But yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I have a lot of his or I have most of his French Canadian films except for one, but I've just not. I haven't delved into them yet. Honestly, I would probably just much rather watch Prisoners again if I'm being honest.
Right. Prisoner, like I think Blade Runner 2049 is my favorite of his for the sci-fi aspect, but yeah, Prisoners is like such I mean, it's not an easy watch because of the story, but it is an easy watch because it's such a good movie. So I love Prisoners. I actually was talking to my wife. I was like, I would like to rewatch Prisoners, and I don't think she's seen it, so we need to watch it.
I think I would like to watch Prisoners because when I watched Prisoners for the first time, I don't think I was married and I didn't have a kid. So I want to see Prisoners now with a kid because I have a
Yeah.
kid. And I want to see how it affects me because I've actually
Yeah.
found that some movies affect me differently, with a child.
Yeah, you kind of be going in with a different lens. That's for sure. That's interesting. Yeah, if you do it, you'll have to let me know how it hits. You know.
All right. Here we go. I'm excited for this one. Okay, my number 6. This dude's my daddy, Andrei Tarkovsky. I absolutely love Andrei Tarkovsky. I have seen actually a couple of the worked with for Pesadilla. We're going to do a Stalker movie night this Friday.
Oh, nice.
Because one of my actors he hasn't seen Stalker yet, and it's funny because one of my practical effects guy he got me a Stalker movie poster that's framed, and then I have another Stalker movie poster in there. And then I have all of Tarkovsky's films on Criterion. I have the Kino Lorber ones. There's just something about Tarkovsky I cannot explain it. I love every film he's done. Ivan's Childhood is probably his most accessible one, although it's probably my least favorite of his, although it's still really, really good. Andrei Rublev is just one of the best epics that I've ever seen in my life. and it's literally about a painter, and you don't even get to watch him paint, which is completely mind blowing. And then there's, which is probably his most mainstream film, which was an answer to Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey,
Hmm.
which Tarkovsky completely does not like that film. I will say it is kind of slow, still really good. And then you have Mir, which is one of Martin Scorsese's favorite films, and Lars von Trier's favorite film, and it's a very autobiographical film from him. And then he turns around and does a dystopian sci-fi film with Stalker, which I have seen God knows how many times. And then he leaves Russia, does Nostalgia, which is about a poet, just sort of going through an existential crisis. I guess every one of Tarkovsky's characters goes through some sort of crisis. And then there's The Sacrifice, which he worked with a lot of Ingmar Bergman's actors and crew. And I just feel like Tarkovsky, there's a quote that a lot of people say about him is he doesn't make films, he sculpts in time. Is, I think, a very powerful thing to say and a very telling thing to say, because while a lot of people will see Tarkovsky's filmography as boring or too slow, if you really see how how he works with the camera and how effective he is, you'll notice that you're in one part of and then 10 minutes have passed and the camera has done a complete 360, moved up 300 feet, came down another 600 feet, circled around all the characters, was on a dolly moving around. And that's what he does, is he doesn't cut whatsoever. He sculpts in time. And I'm just going to have to shut up about him, because it's just, I would have loved to have seen like a horror film from him or a comedy. And he's inspired me a lot, as a director, as a filmmaker.
Hmm.
And might probably never be as slow or methodical as his films, but just seeing, he was a fearless director. There's no other way to put it. I get a little bit passionate talking about Tarkovsky.
I can tell.
Yeah, I
Let's go.
love him. I love him so much, and he's just my number six. I promise I won't give a big speech about the other ones. So maybe I should have put Tarkovsky up even higher. I don't know.
Tarkovsky, I've only seen so far The Sacrifice. I own Stalker. I haven't got around to watching yet. He is on my list to start. Like next Criterion Cell, I want to pick up Solaris. I want to pick up Mirror. I want to like start going through the Tarkovsky. I have a friend who has been getting on me like, I don't know why you haven't watched Tarkovsky, because like he does everything you like in movies. I was like, he does it all. So he's like, you need to watch more of his stuff. And I really like The Sacrifice. It's just I haven't went out of my way to like start picking up, because Criterion did most of his filmography. I don't think they did everything, but they did most of it. So I just need to like start picking up and buying into it.
He didn't do Nostalgia or The Sacrifice. I think Kino Lorber did those.
Did they do like the early like the steamroller and the violin? They do that one.
That's actually a rude one to find. I think you can find like a janky DVD ports on Amazon somewhere. I'm sure there's some bootleg copies floating around. I'm surprised that Criterion has not done Steamroller and the Violin. I'm surprised they didn't put that in the supplements of one of his other releases.
Oh, I guess it's only 46 minutes. I didn't realize that. I just saw it on the IMDb credits. Yeah, I like I said, next Criterion Cell, I want to pick up some more of his stuff. And Stalker has been on like really high up on my watch list for a long time, just because of the story of the production of Stalker. It's one of the most interesting and kind of heartbreaking stories of like filmmaking. If anybody listening doesn't know, the YouTuber Cinema Tyler does a really great video talking about the production.
Very good video.
And kind of repercussions of Stalker. And I've wanted to see it ever since. And the film, just from looking at the stills of it, like the film just looks gorgeous. Like it looks so cool on like from the cinematography, from the frames and stuff. So yeah, he's someone who's been on my hey, you need to get to this person list for quite a while.
And I'll admit, I literally fell asleep to Stalker for about 2.5 months. I've seen Stalker so many times. I'm so excited for you to watch it. When you watch it, you will have to let me know how your experience went, because I think you will love Stalker. I really, really do.
That's what, yeah, my buddy who's I think you've seen all of them. He's like, I think your top two would be Stalker and Solaris. That's what he told me. So I need to dive into it. But like I said, I really enjoyed The Sacrifice, so I need to do it. I just need to get to it. So you got more to say about Tarkovsky?
I need to shut up.
I've kind
I
of
need to shut
noticed
up about
you.
Tarkovsky.
I've kind of noticed from watching your videos, you kind of like the Soviet Russian guys when it comes to filmmaking.
Oh gosh, dude, yes. Don't let the government hear that, man. No, I do. You know, won't put a plug in to like my filmmaking or anything, but one of my dream movies is a dystopian film.
Hmm.
I really love very grounded dystopian type films, or very depressing stuff, I guess you could say. I and I'm not saying that Russian films are depressing, but that Eastern European aesthetic is very pleasing to me. Uh,
Hmm.
I really like their style of. I mean, I don't really think there's any other way of putting it. I think. Especially in the Soviet era of filmmaking, I feel like directors back then, they were just cold. I feel like they were, but there was also a lot of stuff going on in the world at that time.
Hmm.
But yeah, you figured me out.
um, so my number six is the man himself, QT, Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino is the only filmmaker on my list I have seen every single movie to, and they're all a 7 or higher to me. My least favorite, personally, is just Jackie Brown, but it's still like a 7 out of 10, really enjoyable. And he goes all the way up to like Inglorious Bastards. Death Proof is one of my favorite from him. Death Proof is just so good. I think it kind of blows Planet Terror out of the water in that Grindhouse double feature. Then you have like he goes into the western, like spaghetti westerns with Hateful Eight and Django Unchained. He kind of does like he kind of does like what kind of like Kubrick, where he bounces from genre to genre. And if he really only has one more film in him, it's gonna be sad. But at the same time, like you're batting at 100 right now, so you know what I mean. I've even seen his segment in Four Rooms. I've watched the films he's written, like True Romance. It's just I love his writing style. I love crime thrillers. I love you mix that with Tarantino's just quick paced, fast wit, fast dialogue, and it's just really enjoyable. He just makes like these pulpy movies that are just really fun to watch. Kill Bill 1 and 2 is awesome, especially if you love like martial arts, samurai stuff. Yeah, he's awesome. He is a film nerd who got to live the dream and make movies and basically share his passion of film on screen, because Tarantino is one of these people that he's kind of a collage artist, where he takes all these other ideas from other movies and puts them together to make something new and something really exciting. So I really love Tarantino. I think he's a really interesting filmmaker, and he's kind of on this like I don't know, but he's been like showing up on podcasts a lot, so it's just been fun to listen to him talk. I think he's a really smart guy and he has a lot of insight. But yeah, I love Tarantino. Just I don't have like a ton to say. He's my Steven Spielberg. You know what I mean? He's like my safe American director who's made a ton of good stuff. So.
Look, I do like Tarantino. Tarantino actually, once upon a time, used to be my favorite director.
Hmm.
And the more that I got into filmmaking, and the more that I got into just other directors' filmographies, and he kind of just went a little bit down on the list. Like he's still like I would say Django Unchained is probably my favorite film from him, and it's pretty high up on my list, like very high. Like he's made like I think Django is a masterpiece, and I think The Hateful Eight is a masterpiece. Masterpiece. Personally, I think Pulp Fiction, one of the most overrated films ever, and that's just me. It's still a good film, though. It's still a good film. People telling me I'm wrong on that, because I probably am, but it's just for me personally. I like Kill Bill and Glorious Bastards. I kind of like his newer
Hmm.
stuff compared to his older stuff. But I like Tarantino. I guess I don't really have an issue with him. It's just there's other people that I like more, if that makes sense.
Hmm. I mean, I'm kind of with you. Like Pulp Fiction, I don't feel like it's overrated necessarily, but like, and like when I think of like the Tarantino I want to watch again and like really enjoy, like Pulp Fiction, it's probably toward the bottom, but it's still an 8 out of 10. You know what I mean? Like it's probably toward the bottom of my favorite Tarantinos, but like it's still an 8 out of 10 for me. So.
No, absolutely.
And I do think
Okay.
Reservoir Dogs
Oh,
is one of the strong. Sorry, I just want to say I do think Reservoir Dogs to me is like one of the strongest directorial debuts. If you don't want to count his movie that got like lost and burnt up, so.
I've noticed that's sort of a theme with all of our favorite directors. Their first film just magically gets involved in some fire in a warehouse.
Right.
But Okay, so my number 5 is Alfred Hitchcock, which soon to be, when I get done with Bergman's filmography, that'll be the director that I've seen the most films from.
Hmm.
But as of right now, I think I have seen 30 or 31 Alfred Hitchcock films. I have seen almost everything that he has done, minus the silent films that he's done, except I watched The Lodger, was really good. And one thing that I like about Alfred Hitchcock, and I'll say the same thing about David Fincher, is direct his own scripts, other people's scripts.
Hmm.
His style is so prevalent that you know when you're watching an Alfred Hitchcock film. And I really, he's got some misses, yeah, but the way when if you were to put his films on a scale from like his bad films to his good films, you're making like 30 or 40 different films. I mean, you're obviously, odds are you're going to have some bad films in them, but honestly, I only think of maybe 2 films from Alfred Hitchcock that I would be mid. I mean, the man literally just flourished in Hollywood. I mean, he was the biggest name in Hollywood, I think, for like the longest time. I mean, even people that have not seen a Hitchcock film, they know the name Hitchcock.
Hmm.
And he very much so is the master of suspense. Like when he's one of the few, well, I wouldn't say one of the few directors, but he is one of those directors where when you go into one of his films, you know exactly what you're going to get. Although is very like I wouldn't say that his films are. You're not going to study the cinematography. You're not going to study the composition in it. You're not going to. It's just more so they're classic good movies. He's got some
Hmm.
films that are require you to think, but there's also some films you sit down with your grandma and watch them. And he's sort of
Yeah.
got both ends of the spectrum. I do think that Rebecca, my favorite film from him, and I think it's got a bigger and better twist than Psycho. Just personally, in my opinion, I think Rebecca is one of the best psychological thrillers, if you could even call it that, ever made. I think it's in my top 10. I think it's like number 10. But yeah, I love Alfred Hitchcock.
Uh, I'll say hot take. I have zero interest in Hitchcock. I'll be honest. I have only seen Psycho, and I didn't care about it. I didn't care much for it, and I just when I look at his films, I just have zero interest. I was actually was talking to my buddy about this last night because he was over and we was talking about film and stuff, and he was like, "You need to at least watch Vertigo," and then he's like, "And if Vertigo don't click with you," he goes, "just bounce out of Hitchcock." And I was like, all right, I'll do that. I'll pick up Vertigo. I'll give it a try one day, and then if it doesn't work for me, I'll bounce out. But I don't know, there's something about his films that just haven't like piqued my interest at all. And maybe it's from ignorance of not diving into his filmography other than Psycho. So maybe there is other films in his filmography that's going to click with me more, but yeah, I just like looking at his IMDb credits, like none of his films are really like calling out to me very much of like, yeah, this looks like something I want to watch. So like that's a little bit of like my hot take is Hitchcock just doesn't do much for me in terms of interesting me. So but I'm willing to give
Oh,
some
that's
other his other films a shot.
no, I understand. Well, I Vertigo. I would actually do Rebecca as well. I would watch Rebecca as well. That I love that film personally. But one thing that I will say, it pains me that you don't have an interest in Hitchcock, but it also makes me feel good that you're not like the biggest fan of Psycho. So if you do decide to go through your list of like Hitchcock films one day, if you ever do, Psycho will not top. It's like Psycho is at the top of everybody's list, and Rebecca is good. I really do like Rebecca, and I would say it's very different from his other films. Vertigo is still really good as well, but I think Vertigo is kind of overrated. I think Rear Window and Trouble with Harry are a lot better than Vertigo. But that's just me.
Okay, I'll add Rebecca in with Vertigo then as my experiment with Hitchcock. But yeah, Psycho is like a 5 out of 10 for me. I did not care for Psycho. I was bored through most of it. Just
Oh
didn't do anything
gosh,
for
man.
me. I don't know. It's like I watched it and I just like, and I understand like its legacy and where it came from, but like I was just watching it being like, there's so many other films that's come out that's done this but better. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Where like I look at
Well,
something around the other time as Psycho of like Seven Samurai from Kurosawa, and it's like
yeah.
it's still kind of unmatched in a way. So I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm willing to like I said.
Take.
Sorry, you go.
Since you did a hot take, I'm not going to leave you hanging. A hot take probably 2 times for the this video. So I'm not going to leave you hanging. I got a few hot takes of my own as I get up the list.
Okay. Yeah, that's like one that I feel like I would get a lot of shit for, but yeah, I don't know, man. Hitchcock's not he's not piqued my interest much, but I'll add Rebecca and Vertigo to the list as like my next Hitchcockian journey, you know. My number
All right.
5 is you kind of talked about Hitchcock directing other people's scripts, and my number 5, like
Hmm.
my 6 through 10 could. There's other directors that could have made their way in here. I just felt like my 6 through 10 were directors I liked, and you know have movies that I would consider up there like in my favorites. Where I think 5 through 1 are probably my favorite directors and probably my biggest influences when it comes to my own directorial like interests. And my number 5 is actually a director for hire who has directed 113 films, and that is Takashi Miike. Takashi Miike is a Japanese director who has directed pretty much since his start 2 or 3 movies a year. But what's interesting is I've seen about 25 or so of his films, and like every one of them, even they vary in degree of how good they are, from absolutely masterful to eh. But there's always some kind of Mikeism that comes across there. He has this like gonzo kind of energy to him that is just kind of wacky and fun, but also like in some of his films can just carry like this like kind of disturbing underflow. But he's got such range because he's done crazy stuff like Audition, that's like a straight up just horrifying horror movie, to something like Itchy the Killer that is just this over top gory movie, to you know weird stuff like The Happiness of the Cardacuris, which is one of my personal favorites by him, into like something more recent, which is 13 Assassins, which is this really awesome and brutal samurai like epic. And yeah, he's this interesting director, but he really influences me on the whole just workaholic stance, because this dude is just constantly directing movies, just constantly going from one to the other, and still somehow transitioning some kind of style of his over to it. You know, he can lean into the J-exploitation, but then he can bring it back to make you know, manga adaptations and anime adaptations, and also just make straight up gangster movies. And if you look at his like IMDb, like you can see like the numbers go anywhere between like a 4 to almost an 8 on like user ratings. But like a lot of the middling, like a lot of the like middle ground is like 6 and 7s. So to do like 100+ movies and have some kind of consistency there is pretty impressive. But to me, Audition is like a masterpiece. Itchy the Killer is really great. 13 Assassins, The Happiness of the Cardacuris. Like he's just made so many movies like in such like a short span of time, even between like, because Itchy the Killer and Audition and The Happiness of the Cardacuris were all like within like a year of each other. Because Audition was 99 and Happiness of the Cardacuris is 2001. So he made like 6 movies in this like 2-year period. It's crazy. Yeah, I love Takashi Miike. He's a super fun Japanese director who some of his like gems are real gems of filmmaking, I think.
Yeah, I feel bad for the label that tries to do a complete filmography of his films because yeah, all the rights and everything. But no, yeah, I've not seen as many films that as you've seen from him. Audition and Itchy the Killer are both really really good. And Audition was I think Audition is probably I would probably put it up there as one of the better horror films of all time. I would
Mm-hmm.
probably say it's completely different from any other horror film that you would watch. I mean, there's so many different tones in the film. Like I like when I first started the film, and then throughout the middle of the film with the bag and everything, and then when you
Yeah.
get to the end, I was just
Right.
I was not expecting it whatsoever. So I don't really have anything else to add other than he seems like he might be a director for hire, but it seems like he genuinely loves movies. I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
loves making movies. Because if you're going to make 3 or 4 a year, I mean, golly, I can't imagine one where you're going to be able to sit down and rest. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's like the thing is like, yeah, he's a director for hire who's just bouncing from one project to the other, but like there is this I haven't seen, like I said, all of his films, but I have seen like like from early into his career up to like more recent stuff, like one of his more recent films, First Love. And there is like this consistent passion like throughout his career. And I found last time I was at Half Price Books biography on Takashi Miike, so I'm pretty excited to start reading that here soon. So I find his like work ethic just really interesting, and I want to learn more about him. But there's not a lot of interviews and stuff with Takashi Miike really floating around that's in English. So because I don't think he speaks English at all.
Um, all right, ready for my number 4?
Yep.
So my number 4 is David Lynch. David Lynch is one of those few directors where I don't really dislike any of his films whatsoever. I even like Dune to an extent. I feel like there's a certain charm that Dune has. But David Lynch, I actually recently did a master class. I listened to his master class, and he is one of the directors that sort of made me not be afraid of my own art, if that makes sense. He really doesn't care what anybody thinks of him. He doesn't care what people think of his films. He truly makes his films because he wants to, and and I believe him because have you seen any of his shorts? David Lynch's shorts?
No, I was gonna say I have seen all but two of his features, but I haven't seen any of his shorts yet.
So David Lynch, he is the type of guy that will make a masterpiece like The Elephant Man or Eraserhead, and then do a 4 minute long short film about Barbie drinking coffee with him doing a voiceover. I mean, like there's no in between with that man. But Eraserhead, one of the best directorial debuts.
Agreed.
Elephant Man is just so good. Even though David Lynch was a director for hire for that film, excuse me, essentially, it still felt like a Lynch film.
Mm.
And it was so thought provoking, and it had Anthony Hopkins, which plus, but it also made me feel something. Blue Velvet, terrific. Dune has a charm to it. Straight Story, I think it's funny. He didn't write the script for that film, but he considers Straight Story to be his most experimental film. Okay, Twin Peaks is absolutely mesmerizing. Twin Peaks is one of my favorite shows ever. And you have Mulholland Drive, which ended up as a like a pilot for a TV show that actually did not go. The studios didn't go through with it, so he took that, expanded on it, and ended up making a masterpiece. Which this might be a hot take in itself, but I don't think Mulholland Drive is probably at the bottom of my list with their films. I would probably even say I might even enjoy Inland Empire maybe a little bit more than Mulholland Drive. He's got such a unique and interesting filmography to the point to where he has a genre which is Lynchian. I'm,
Hmm.
I mean, to get your own genre, that's a feat in itself. But and also if you want to check out his films, if you're watching this video, Criterion has released almost every single one of his
Hmm.
movies except for The Heart and Straight Story, which
Hmm.
I heard a very bizarre rumor. I don't know if this is, but I heard this a couple of months ago, and I haven't heard anything else since. But apparently, I heard a rumor that the whole series of Twin Peaks was going to come to Criterion. I
Oh, that'd
don't
be
know
cool.
what that is. That would be very interesting. But I'm just going to go ahead and end it now with I did not say that. You did not hear me say that, and yeah. So
uh, yeah. So when you sent me your list before I compiled mine together, two of that are in your top five would probably have, if not been in my top five, around my top five, like my 6 and 7, and Lynch is one of them. I love David Lynch. I was lucky enough to get into David Lynch through my local art house theater did a David Lynch like retrospective where every
ooh,
weekend, every Sunday, they played one of his films, with the last one being the last film of it being Eraserhead, but they went chronological for everything else. I got to see everything in theaters except for I didn't see Dune because I already owned it on Blu-ray and had already seen it. So instead, I just decided to rewatch it at home rather than spend the $6.50 for the ticket. But they didn't do Inland Empire and they didn't do Straight Story, and those are still the two I have not seen. And then Twin Peaks, I haven't watched. I've seen Fire Walk with Me, but I haven't seen the series. I want to see the series. I just have a hard commitment time committing to a series. So at some point, I need to just sit down and watch Twin Peaks. But I do have Inland Empire on Blu-ray, so I just need to find out how to get the Straight Story, which is apparently a Walt Disney movie that's not on Disney Plus.
Straight Story you can get. They have a DVD that's $9 on Amazon. oddly enough, is it has a pretty good transfer for a DVD. It looks pretty good for a DVD, and then also Imprint has a version of it if you're region free. But yeah, I don't think Disney's going to let that film go. It sucks that Disney has it because it's a real straight story is very good. Sissy Spacek, crap, Harry Dean Stanton, and I'm going blank here. I can't think of the lead actor's name. Story is really good.
I wonder if Disney has it on their movie club because they have some of their movies like hidden away on movie club. Oh, is it not gonna let me? Is it not gonna let me look at what's on movie club without signing up? I don't think it's going to. Lame. I'll have to look into that because like there's a movie with Harlan Williams that's not on Disney Plus that's only on a crappy DVD that's 4:3 aspect ratio and 16:9, but you can get the Blu-ray on Movie Club. So I wonder maybe if it's on there, but I'll have to look into that. Yeah, and then Inland Empire, I need to watch. I picked it up, not the last Criterion sale, but the one before it. So I was pretty excited when they announced it because that was one of my, for a while, like holy grail try to finds, you know, because I just think it looked cool. So, but I gotta agree with you on Hot Take too. Out of the films I've seen, like I said, there's two of them I haven't. Mulholland Drive's probably toward the bottom for me as well. So I know I like Mulholland Drive better than his Dune, but it'd be toward the bottom too. I think Lost Highway or Wild at Heart would probably my top two.
Lost Highway is really good as well. I didn't get a chance to talk about Lost Highway, but I feel like Lost Highway is endlessly rewatchable to an extent.
I think so. I do gotta say though, I had a really fun theater experience with Eraserhead because it was like a sold out showing, and we're like watching along the movie, and then the credits roll, and everybody left in silence, and nobody like talked at all. Like everybody just like went out of the theater and started going their separate way, and like nobody spoke anything. They just was complete silence leaving. So that was cool.
That's cool for you, but golly, if that was like David Lynch's premiere day and everybody just did that, it's like, oh my god, did they love my film or did they hate it?
Right. Yeah, like nobody was talking about it. It was like, because me and a buddy went, we didn't start talking about it till we got outside because it was just like ooh, I gotta take that in a little bit. But yeah, everybody just left. They just like nobody said anything. It was funny. And then have you seen any of his like weather report stuff that he's done like on YouTube and stuff?
Yeah. Actually, apparently making a new film. I've heard that he is doing a film. I don't know if it's for Netflix or what, but he stopped his weather reports because he said he was going to go create or something. So who knows?
Yeah, I'll be interested. Yeah, I love Lynch, so I need to watch Straight Story though. That one I really want to see. My number 4 is Gaspar Noé, which I know you did a ranking of. I love Gaspar Noé. I haven't seen Love, and I haven't seen I Stand Alone, but I've seen everything else, including like Lux Eterna, and I've seen some of his, like he did that one short film, The Saint Laurent. I've seen that, but for me, Gaspar Noé is probably one of the most interesting filmmakers working right now in terms of experimental like approaches, because like he just does it because it seems like he just does such crazy stuff, like and Irreversible, cutting it up and having like frequencies that make like the viewer nauseous during segments, or Enter the Void and having this floating camera that's like always top down and long takes, and Vortex showing 2 different screens. I guess he did that in Lux Eterna too, but showing 2 different screens at the same time. That's really interesting. I think it works better in Vortex and Lux Eterna because it kind of shows the 2 different struggling stories dealing with dementia. Climax is this horrendous nightmare of just being unknowingly doused with drugs. And then you have Love, which I haven't seen, but I've heard a lot about it. That's like utilizing 3D in like a very like grotesque way. So he's like this crazy person who's like out making some of the most interesting films because he's willing to just do whatever because he wants to, it seems like, and there's typically some kind of rhyme or reason when you actually watch it. But then on top of that is like visually, his movies visually is almost like Terrence Malick from Hell in a way, where he has like that kind of a lot of the time he has a lot of that steady cam, but it's also like showing these horrific things and through the lighting and the grime that I think Noé puts a lot of the time on screen. It's just you can't like look away from it. And then he's like he assaults you. Like Lux Eterna would kill my wife, like literally, because she's epileptic, so she can't watch that
Oh
movie.
goodness.
So, Lux Eterna like is like assaulting you at the end of it, and I don't know. I commend him. He's just insanely daring and kind of challenging to the audience while making just really interesting films. And to me, he's really inspiring. He's a really inspiring filmmaker on how to take risks, but also just be visually interesting. Like his films are just so visual and so interesting to me.
Yeah, for the love of God, when you watch Love, do not let anybody walk in while you're watching it because they will ask questions. Yeah, I actually really do appreciate Gaspar Noé. I do a lot. He's definitely up there close to my top 10. Think Climax. I think Climax is a masterpiece. I will never
Hmm.
forget the first time that I watched that film. I think Climax is just a beautiful, beautiful film. I mean, it's definitely a very destructive film, but I still think it's beautiful. And what he does with the dancing segments, and it's almost like I would consider it Anxiety the movie. Like, I mean, I know this
Hmm.
Safdie brothers or whatever, their films are anxiety ridden, but no, Gaspar Noé film in the dark on a bad day, like
Right.
that's how to watch him. I actually, I would love to see one day Gaspar Noé hold up the Palme d'Or one day.
Right.
I would love to see that. He deserves it. He really does. I agree with you 100%. He's a very inspiring director. No holds barred, does what he wants. He's a true auteur. He really is.
Yeah, yeah. I was happy I finally found Climax in physical. Not super long ago actually. I finally found it in physical. So I was like, sweet, finally. But like the way you talk about like Climax, first time ever seeing it is how I feel watching. It was the first time I watched Irreversible. Like that movie, I mean, I was just like, I watched it and I was just like in a mood for like 2 days of just being like, oh my god, what did I just watch? And I haven't watched it yet, but I have the release that comes with the straight cut, so I need to watch the straight cut of it. So pretty excited about checking that out at some point.
Well, number three, my hot take. Since we're in my top three, these are obviously directors that I freaking love. So my number three is David Fincher. And when you look at the directors that came out in the 90s, you had Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, you had Paul Thomas Anderson, and you had David Fincher. I think David Fincher is not one of the best or the best director that came out of the 90s. I think he is one of the best directors that's ever lived, and I feel like he is just so ahead of the curve when it comes to filmmaking in general. Yes, there are some films that I don't necessarily like in terms of the story because he is one of those directors that he does other scripts or he'll have somebody work on something and then he'll do it. But
Hmm.
when it comes to the technical aspects of his films, David Fincher film, I'm going to watch a technically perfect, brilliant film. Whether it's the editing, cinematography, the color grading, it's just Fincher, he cares about every little detail. And his films like Zodiac, which I think Gone Girl is one of the best films ever made. The Social Network, I Social Network got robbed of basically in a hole. And Seven, which is an absolute masterpiece. Club, I like Fight Club. Fight Club's a good film. I don't like it as much as his other films. And I recently watched Panic Room, which I thought was extraordinary. I don't know where the 4K is for that, but it needs to come out soon. But even The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, I feel like honestly, I think I enjoy that film more than Forrest Gump, and that's the film that it gets compared to a lot. I think down the road, uh, David Fincher and my number two pick, which I'll talk about later. I feel like he's going to go down as someone like Kubrick. I feel like
Hmm.
people are going to look back at David Fincher and be like, that was one of the great, if not the greatest director that's ever lived. I think he soars past Christopher Nolan. When you look at David Fincher and his films that he makes, this is something that a lot of people they don't touch on. But like David Fincher, he gets like almost $200 million to make
Yeah.
his movies. Like I
Yeah.
think The Killer that just came out on Netflix, I think its budget was $175 million for The Killer. And then you look at Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, which I guess I will say Christopher Nolan did utilize his budget a lot better in Oppenheimer, but he only got 100 million. Fincher, I mean, he can basically do what he wants. You know, he can basically spit in your face, and then you'll be like, "All right, here's your money. Go make the movie." I mean, he's earned that respect, and Lee, it just doesn't make more movies. He can literally do anything he wants. I love David Fincher so much.
Yeah, Fincher for me is one of them that's like kicking the boots at like that 6 to 10 range. He's someone that could have went in that 6 to 10 because yeah, Gone Girl's great. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I wish we could have got like the full trilogy out of him for that one. That would have been
Gosh,
sweet.
yes.
Social Network made me care about a story I could care less about. You know, I don't care about the creation
I
of
know what you
Facebook,
mean.
but
I
I
know what
love
you
the
mean.
Social Network. Yeah, and Zodiac. Zodiac. I mean, Seven's probably my favorite from him, but like Zodiac is so good. It's such a good crime thriller. I mean, even Fight Club is really good. I haven't seen Panic Room or The Game yet. Those are the only two films of his I haven't seen yet. I need to watch them at some point. I know The Game is on Criterion, and I actually think I have a DVD of Panic Room somewhere, but I just haven't watched it yet. So yeah, I love Fincher too. I think you're
He has a
100%.
DVD of Panic Room.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm like right on. I think I'm like right with you though on. I think he's going to be. I think he's like our modern day Kubrick. I gotta agree with you on that one for sure. My number 3. Are we good to move on to? You got more to say with Fincher? Or?
No.
Okay, my number 3 is Akira Kurosawa, the classic Japanese filmmaker, the kind of the master of the samurai movie in a way. Yeah, I love Akira Kurosawa. Every movie I've seen from him, I've really enjoyed. I've not seen everything. I've seen a good chunk of them. Kurosawa for a long time was a director. Like every Criterion cell, I'd pick up one or two Kurosawa films. And yeah, I just love his stuff. I still think Ran to this day is one of the most impressive productions I've ever seen. The amount of extras and the costumes, the whole set they burned down to the ground. There's just so much in Ran or Ron, depending on how you want to say it, that is just absolutely fantastic. But he's made huge masterpieces like Yojimbo. If he didn't make Yojimbo, the Good and the Bad, the Ugly, that whole trilogy never would have existed. You know, and Sanjuro, Yojimbo Sanjuro is kind of the original Good and the Bad, the Ugly in a way. Throne of Blood is such a sweet Macbeth rendition. Seven Samurai. If Seven Samurai didn't exist, I don't think action films the way they work now would exist. I think it's the most influential. I think it's probably the most influential film of that genre, but I think it might be one of the most influential films of all time in that sense. Of it just was kind of a trendsetter of so many different ways to tell a story in that action genre and present that kind of not only using like slow-mo and stuff, but kind of present those like large scale like action, but also that more like one-on-one kind of combat. And he kind of has some of that in Rashomon. Ikiru is such a great story dealing with like the stages of grief. And yeah, I love Kurosawa. Every time like I get excited to watch one of his films I haven't seen, but I also like every film I've seen from him. To me, I could easily rewatch, even if like Seven Samurai has like a 3.5 hour runtime. So yeah, I love Kurosawa. I think he's just a master at making film.
I agree with you. My one of my friends, one of my actors that I work with, we went to the Barnes and Noble Criterion sale before we saw the Holdovers, and he was getting into collecting, and he got a few Criterions, and I told him I was like, man, to get Seven Samurai, I was like, you have to get it. It is. I agree with you 100%. Action films would not be where they today without that film, and I'm soon for it. It's and then Yojimbo and Sanjuro. Um, look, I'm going to be completely honest. This is kind of stupid, but I still think that Yojimbo is technically a sequel to Sanjuro. I can't explain it. I know Yojimbo came out first, but I made a video about it, or talking about it, and I feel like if you watch Sanjuro first before Yojimbo, I feel like you could do. I know it's a stupid take on my part, but Akiru, great. I enjoyed Living a little bit more than Akira, but of course you got Rashomon, Ran,
Mhm.
even some of his later works. He's one of those directors where he kind of just he made a lot of films like somebody like a Ridley Scott or a Scorsese, but he
Hmm.
really didn't miss.
No, no, I
He
don't. I
really
don't think
didn't miss
he.
at all.
No, I mean he's got some stuff like early in his career that I haven't seen that I've definitely have heard is like a little bit more like kind of middling, but like yeah, he's just done so many films that are just considered like great films. The Hidden
Mhm.
Fortress was a huge inspiration for Star Wars, so it's like he's done so much to like color so much of film and yeah, just classic, just like classic filmmaking classic storytelling, and his films are beautiful. His cinematography is always top notch, from what I've seen.
Mhm. Um, well, my number two, and my number two, I never thought I would say this, but my number two and one are almost about to be interchangeable. I feel like the more that I rewatch this director's films, the more I enjoy him a lot more. And I think I'm a little bit biased about this director. I wouldn't say that this director is the next Kubrick or what have you, which he very much so could be, because I do think Lars von Trier is one of the best directors that's ever lived. He's my comfort director. It's really hard to explain. I really just I love everything that Lars von Trier has done. Even his more films, I feel like I've taken something from them. Element of Crime, I feel like is amazing, even though Tarkovsky said it was shit. Um, yeah, I absolutely love the house that Jack built, Melancholia. Probably would have won the Palme d'Or if Lars von Trier didn't say that stupid stuff that he said at Cannes. Um,
Yeah.
Maniac is, just a masterpiece. It's my favorite thing that he's done so far.
Okay.
Dogville. I mean, if this can put Lars von Trier as a filmmaker into perspective, Tarantino said that Dogville was probably the best manuscript ever written. Crap, what is that film called? Breaking the Waves is one of Martin Scorsese's favorite films, and Paul Thomas Anderson said that he would carry Lars von Trier's luggage anywhere, any day. So I feel like Lars von Trier, he's a provocateur. He definitely has to get a reaction out of people. But the more that I watch his films, the more that I understand him, and the more that I see how much of a genius he is. I think Lars von Trier is probably the most inspiring director to me that's working today, and he's definitely my favorite director working today. That's still alive. I mean, I love everything that he's done. He's very much so. It's like, you know how some directors will have a specific style?
Hmm.
Like when you watch their films, you can put on the TV and you're like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a film from Kubrick or Tarantino. Tarantino, very much so. But
Hmm.
Lars von Trier, if you look at his filmography, starting out, very much a still camera guy, very methodical, very Tarkovsky-ish in a way. Element of Crime is basically a more, I think, Tarkovsky film in terms of the subject matter, and how brutal it is. But then after the Dog Me 95 movement, Lars von kind of just quit caring. He just picked up the camera and just waved it everywhere. But he does it in such a almost where it feels like it's not distracting, and it feels like he's very much putting the story first as opposed to his photography or his just the overall look at the film. Like Nymphomaniac, that film is almost like a crime because it looks good, but he shoots in natural light a lot. I think. I
Hmm.
mean, he would have to sort of do all these different camera movements. But Nymphomaniac, there was one scene in Nymphomaniac when it's set in the nighttime, and I like natural light too. I'm not going to film something in natural light in the nighttime where I have to crank the ISO up to like 25,000 just to
Right.
get people to see it, which I feel like he did that a few times. But he doesn't care, and I can't really blame him. I love Lars von Trier. I hope we get another film from him. He's just so inspiring to me. And I haven't had a chance to see The Kingdom. You talked about Inland Empire being sort of your holy grail of physical media
Hmm.
releases. I have been waiting for The Kingdom for ever The Kingdom Exodus even came out, because that was basically Denmark's answer to Twin Peaks. So I'm
Yeah.
so excited to see The Kingdom finally next February. So excited.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna order that set too when it comes out because I've been kind of wanting to watch it too. Yeah, LVT Lars von Trier easily could have made my top five. I absolutely adore him. Shadow and Life is my first feature film, but I did a short film first. That was like a 4 minute or so short film, and the visual style was very heavily inspired by Lars von Trier because I had just started getting into his like filmography, and I was just like really inspired by the way he tackled that kind of handheld. And for me, like I haven't watched a ton of his earlier work. I need to I need to get the uh what's the box set that Criterion did with Element of Crime, and is it like the Europa trilogy or something, like the Europe trilogy or something?
Trilogy, the Europe trilogy.
Yeah, I need to pick that up. I almost got it last Criterion sale, but I decided to get Wally, so I'll probably think about getting it.
Same thing, right? Same thing.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I love him. I love his filmmaking, the way he approaches filmmaking. The whole Dogma 95 idea is really fascinating to me. The way to kind of deconstruct of how to make a movie. But yeah, I love his films, and I gotta agree with you. I think Nymphomaniac 2 it wasn't as strong as Volume 1, but I do think Nymphomaniac Volume 1 is my favorite thing Von Trier's done. I just thought it was so great. I love Antichrist, Melancholia. Yeah, I just really like The Element of Crime is actually the one of the earliest films of his I've seen. I think I've seen it. I have it rated on IMDb as an 8, but I'm also I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because it's the one it's all kind of in sepia in it a little bit. It's all orange. Yeah, I've seen Element of Crime. I'd have to rewatch it to justify if it's still an 8 out of 10. I would have watched it back when I first started getting into his films. But yeah, I love him. I love his films. Sad to hear he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, but easily could have been my top 5 too. So my number 2, do you have anything more you want to say with Von Trier?
No, no, no.
My number 2 is Martin Scorsese. Scorsese is, in my opinion, probably the greatest American filmmaker. Just consistently good throughout his career. I mean, the dude's 1,000 years old, and he just put out a banger. I think Killers of the Flower Moon was really, really great. But yeah, he's another director that's also tackled a lot of different things, between things like The Last Temptation of Christ into something like Gangs of New York and The Aviator, kind of doing some biography picks, kind of doing time period pieces, kind of doing, obviously very well known for the gangster flicks, which is my favorite genre. And I don't think anybody does it quite like Scorsese does. Goodfellas is a movie I could watch every weekend and never get tired of it. I mean, I've seen that movie so many times. Yeah, just I love Martin Scorsese. He is, I don't know, I've read his biography. It was it goes up to, if I remember correctly, it goes up to right after Goodfellas is where the biography ends off that I have. And his approach to filmmaking of basically just being I loved film. I became obsessed with it, and I had to work within film. And the scrappy nature he had about going out and just, we have these locations and we have these actors. We have this little bit of money. Let's shoot this, and we'll work on it. And just, yeah, he's pretty inspiring from that aspect of trying to find his way into his own filmmaking career, and then the impact he's had. I mean, he's a staple name in the community and just for the art form. And yeah, I love Scorsese. I love his films. Anytime he's coming out with something, I'm there opening weekend for sure.
No, Killers of the Flower Moon is really, I think, a testament to just how great he is as a director. I mean, my favorite film from Martin Scorsese is Wolf of Wall Street, which I think he was in his 60s when he made that. So I feel like he's made best films later in life. I feel like Sacrifice is also, or not the Sacrifice, the Silence is absolutely extraordinary. And he's got a lot of range too. I mean, he's the type of dude that can make a gangster film, then make a western, or something like Killers of the Flower Moon. Can do sort of a horror, sort of psychological thriller like Shutter Island. And then go do a children's film like Hugo. He's definitely a connoisseur of film, and he just loves filmmaking. And I love Martin Scorsese. He could have easily have made it in my top 10 as well. I just, there's more people that appreciate him more than I do. I will not sit here and deny that he's probably one of the best directors that's ever lived, for sure.
I love a fun little thing about Silence. Shinya Tsukamoto is actually one of the Japanese monks in that movie. One of the Japanese
oh really
priests. Yeah, hang around with Andrew Garfield and Liam Neeson.
Okay.
Yep. So that's kind of fun. Little piece of information. But I also just want to shout out Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. I don't feel like that one gets brought up enough in like talking about like the
Getting that,
best
that's on my
Scorsese.
Christmas list.
Right on.
It's
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 my
on my
favorite Ellen
Christmas list.
Burstyn performance. It's my favorite Ellen Burstyn performance. So I hope you enjoy it. You have to let me know what you think of it if you haven't seen it.
I've seen it. It's on my Christmas list. I found the BFI DVD. And I promise you, as soon as I buy the DVD, Criterion's going to announce the 4K.
Right.
Um,
That's actually
well, so
that's hold on. That's a funny story. Is I actually got a Martin Scorsese DVD box set from Dollar General for $10. That was 5 DVDs. It was let me look. It was I know it was a copy of Mean Streets. Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Who's That Knocking at My Door? After Hours, and that was it. So it was four. It was four. It was 4 DVDs. But yeah. That's how
you
I
found
got
a
Alice.
DVD collection at the Dollar Tree with those films?
Yeah, I don't know if I still have the outer box. Might be downstairs if I still have it. But yeah, those were the DVDs that came in. Scorsese DVD.
Totally.
Yeah, it was $10. Still sealed. Yeah, it was this one right here. 5-pack DVD. It's $18 on eBay now. But yeah, it's this. I'll have to show it to you later. Oh, it came with Goodfellas too. So it was 5. It was 5 movies. So it also came with Goodfellas, which I already have the nice 4K set too. So, but yeah, I found that for $10 at Dollar General.
So wow, all right, we're at number ones now. I thought that was your one for summer, so I don't even know what your number one's going to. This is exciting. Well, my number one director of all time, and believe it or not, I actually used to think my number one director of all time is Stanley Kubrick, and I used to think that he was the most overrated guy in the film industry. I used to love Clockwork Orange and Barry Lyndon and The Shining and Full Metal Jacket, and that was it. It wasn't until I actually started getting into filmmaking in a bigger way where I really to appreciate him a lot more. And when you say Martin Scorsese is the best American director, in your opinion, I actually wouldn't disagree with you. I do believe that I'm going to sit here and say that Stanley Kubrick is this director that's ever lived. I do think he's one of the best. To me, he is the best. But I feel like Stanley Kubrick, I appreciate him so much and I really can't explain how I got into his filmography like I did, but he just inspires me to no end. He inspires me to want to be a perfectionist. He inspires me to want to tackle other genres. I used to be somebody that was sort of nervous to tackle other genres just because I wasn't sure how accepting it would be. Because
Mm-hmm.
whenever I was like getting into filmmaking, I was sort of doing these sort of action, sort of crime things, whether it came from short films or what have you. And then I would talk about wanting to do a dystopian film or wanting to do a period piece film or a comedy or a horror. And, and I would sort of confuse people that were around me. They'd be like, "Oh, really? I wasn't expecting you to want to do something like that." And then whenever I would sit down and think about it, I was like, "Okay, well, am I just trying to do too much?" And then I started going through Kubrick's filmography and I started listening to documentaries about him. And I used to be sort of worried about, like, okay, well, I would like to be a big director, in the mainstream, and I would like to get to work on other projects and make it in the industry. But I was like, I also want to have a family, and I just met my wife, at the time, and some people sort of say like, hey, you can't have a family and do that and this and all that stuff. And Kubrick basically, man, in filmmaking came second to him.
Mm-hmm.
He put his family up front. He was very private. He basically reminded myself in a way in terms of my private life, and it really was very inspiring to know that this man had anxieties about flying, didn't want to leave the house, but yet he was able to sort of bring videos to himself. I mean, for God's sakes, the dude did a Vietnam film in London,
Mm-hmm.
and really good Vietnam film. But look at his films. It inspires me to want to be a better director. It inspires me to want to work on whatever it is I want to work on. Get better as he got older. Like Fear and Desire, I think is a hot piece of garbage. I do not like Fear and Desire at all. I think is absolute ass. It's 60 minutes, and I can barely sit through that film. The Killing, I think is just completely. I just don't like it at all. I think it's very forgettable. But then you got, or not The Killing, Killer's Kiss. My bad, Killer's Kiss. The Killing is got really, really good. And then Pass of Glory, I enjoyed Pass of Glory, but it's not my favorite. And Spartacus is very Lolita came out. And then Doctor Strangelove, and I think everything from Doctor Strangelove is the masterpiece. And the funny thing is, a lot of people think that Stanley Kubrick, because I've like 20 hours of documents, so I'm not trying to be a know-it-all about his stuff. It's just I know information about him.
Hmm.
And apparently, a lot of people think that he was such a perfectionist that he had only released like a film every 5 to 10 years. But actually said that he would get really depressed because he wanted to make films all the time, like Woody Allen, but he couldn't find anything that was interesting enough.
Hmm. That's
But
interesting.
I exactly, and I will not disagree with anybody when they say that Stanley Kubrick is very, because I feel like back in the day he was very controversial and was a very mixed director, and then he ended up getting reevaluated as one of the best, and it feels like he sort of fell into that overrated category again. I think where people talk about him, they don't really talk about him as like the greatest film director ever. They sort of like, oh yeah, okay, 2001 is great, and The Shining is great, but you don't really hear people talk about like Barry Lyndon anymore. Like I thought Barry Lyndon was going to have a big resurgence, coming up, but
Mhm.
I feel like he's sort of that overrated director again. I don't know. I might be wrong about that, but I love him personally. He's my favorite.
Yeah, I haven't seen all of Kubrick. I need to. Everything I've seen, I really loved. I did pick up Barry Lyndon when we made the Criterion video together. After you said nothing but great things about it, and I just haven't sat down to watch it yet. Barry Lyndon is also one of Kubrick's films that my buddy was like, yeah, you would love it just from a. I really love natural lighting. Like I think natural lighting is really underutilized in film. Because it doesn't quite have the same cinematic pop as like studio lighting and stuff would, but there's something that I think
Natural
brings
light.
a sense of what.
I was going to say I only film with natural light. I think it's a
Hmm.
great challenge, and I agree with you. Just there's some sort of, this might be a dumb way to describe it, but there's a certain crisp that you get from it. I can't explain it.
To me it almost like grounds the film a little bit, like it like I which is what I'm saying is going to be completely contradicted by my number one, but like there is like something I really love just about that natural lighting of just I don't know, it's just like it fills a room in such a different way than like the studio lighting and stuff would, and it just I don't know, I come to find a lot of movies that I'm like, man, I just really love the way this looks ends up being like natural light. So I'm kind of with you. Like for a lot of, I wouldn't say for everything that I want to make, I'm gonna go traditional light. Like I mean, natural lighting. But there's a lot of I think application for natural light, and I really do appreciate it. And that's what my buddy was like. You'll love Barry Lyndon just from a visual standpoint. So I have the Criterion. I need to sit down and watch it. But yeah, I love Kubrick too. Great director. My dog hates him. He hates The Shining, but I'm not even
You know,
joking. When we
oh,
watched The Shining, the elevator scene, my dog had his ears pinned back and his eyes were all wide. He did not like it.
well, actually, since I'm going to be done talking about directors and stuff now, so Barry Lyndon is my favorite film from Kubrick, and
Hmm.
Kubrick is my favorite director. But Barry Lyndon is my second favorite film. My favorite film of all time is The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Tobe Hooper's not even on my list in my
Right?
top 10 favorite directors. I don't even know if I'd put him in my top 15. I just love Texas Chainsaw that much.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw is in my like favorites of all time. I don't know if I don't think it's my number one, but it's in my favorites of all time. I've seen Texas Chainsaw so many times, and why all the
I have to.
remakes
It's
and stuff suck.
I know. I do like Texas Chainsaw Part 2, and I do like the remake. I do like the remake. To be honest, I'm excited to hear your number one. I can't think of what your number one could be.
Well, my number one, to go back to Lars von Trier's, is another Danish person from Denmark, and that is Nicholas Winding Refn. Refn's my
Really?
number one.
Okay.
Yep.
Let me hear this. I'm excited.
Refn is the only director I've come across that makes the exact movies that I want to make. He is hands down the
Okay.
most influential and inspiring filmmaker I've come across. And that even goes before he gets to the Neon Drench, where he's doing more of the gritty stuff like The Pusher. And even like some of his failures, like Fear X, I find really interesting. The only film I haven't seen from him is Bleeder, because I can't find, like, Bleeder is impossible to find in the
Film
US
to find,
other than
yeah.
import. So I haven't seen Bleeder yet. I want to really, really bad. But, like, you know, Only God Forgives, I think, is a masterpiece. I know William Freakin doesn't agree with that. I don't know if you've seen the clip where
I have, yeah.
but to me, Only God Forgives is actually probably like my second favorite film from him. I was just flabbergasted with it when I saw it. There's a way Refn approaches his story structure that is exactly how I want to tell stories. Their characters are stoic and kind of slow. He's, you know, I don't know if you've seen Too Old to Die Young, but it's a 13-hour movie where there will be like a 2-minute section of somebody just standing. And I don't know if it adds anything necessarily to the narrative, but it adds to the tone of the mood of the film. And there's like everything's kind of slow, but that violence in his films that are pretty prevalent through all of his films is so snappy and explosive that it's just super effective for me. But then you mix that with visuals. I talk about visually. I think a lot of directors on my list are very visual directors in a way, and I think Refn has some of the best cinematography he's put on film, between the heavy saturation, because he's colorblind to midtones, so he uses like really vibrant colors to see, you know, because he wants to see the color, and it lives in, I love bright vivid colors like that, like especially in the purples and the blues and the reds. I love that. And you know, his films are drenched with it, but then he has like, his films are kind of these like seedy, dark kind of like crime thrillers that kind of explore some of like the kind of worst sides of humanity in a way. Even like in something like Drive, it's exploring romance, but it's still gross and kind of grimy, even though everything is like crystal clear on screen. Bronson, my personal favorite film, probably of all time. It was the film that I watched that made me look at art more than just entertainment. It made me realize it's an art form. It made me want to evaluate how you make a movie. It made me want to learn about why people make decisions in movies. And I think Bronson is fantastic. But then on top of that, he's my favorite director because he is a director that risked it all by leaving film school to become a director, then failed and had to rebuild his career. And now he's kind of a cult director, and he's very interesting to listen to. Like he's done several cool Q&As and stuff where he has a really interesting philosophy on how to make film and like what he wants to do making film, and really interesting ways to approach film. But then on top of that, it's just like, yeah, he's out of every director I've talked about, like if I would want to make like an ideal movie, like my ideal movie would probably end up being like a Refn film. So I got to go Refn as my number one.
Well, I wasn't just looking at my phone while you were talking. I was actually looking at Too Old to Die Young, which I think it's crazy because all the episodes are an hour, except the final episode's like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it worth what? So basically, because it seems like he's went from making movies to sort of miniseries. So is Copenhagen Cowboy and Too Old to Die Young, are those good watches? Would you recommend them?
I personally like Copenhagen Cowboy more than Too Old to Die Young. That's my personal opinion.
Right.
Copenhagen Cowboy is shorter, but two is like I don't know. There's just like this vibe to Copenhagen Cowboy. It's his kind of return back to Denmark. He made it in Copenhagen, which is where he's from, and it kind of feels kind of personal. He got some. I don't know how many he got, but he got one of the actors from the Pusher trilogy to return to it. I don't know how to say his name, but he's like the drug lord from the first, or drug dealer from the first Pusher movie, and I think he's on the he's like one of the main characters in Pusher 3. It's been a while. I need to revisit the Pusher trilogies. I haven't watched the Pusher trilogies since like college era, so I need to revisit them. But yeah, Copenhagen Cowboy is cool. It's like a, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like this weird like gangster fairy tale thing. But then Too Old to Die Young, my problem with Too Old to Die Young is like it's kind of a roller coaster where some episodes are super good, and then some of them you're just like, all right, like let's move on. Like episode 1, it was fantastic, but then episode 2 was like, all right, that was an hour episode that really didn't do very much to like move the story along. But yeah, I think they're all worth watching. Personally, especially like because I'm looking at the episode list right now. Like episode 5 is an 8.8, but it is like the best episode in the whole show. It's a really really good episode. Really gritty, really dark. Got some twisted things in it. But yeah, it's good. I definitely would recommend checking it out. So
Okay. I guess that's it.
yeah.
That was our 10 directors. That was a lot of fun. You're number one, but you've got me. I've never seen the Pusher trilogy. Well, I have. The first one, the DVD that I have is it's 16:9, but it's 16:9 for a different size TV. Like it's really weird.
Hmm,
Like it's like I'm watching just a little box. But thank
that's weird.
picked up the Umbrella Entertainment set, the Blu-ray set from Umbrella Entertainment. I want to watch Pusher now. But yeah, that was actually a lot of fun. I'm pretty
It
sure my
was.
list will change in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's like I feel pretty good about like my top 5, but that 6 through 10 could definitely be rotated out with like other directors like Del Toro and well, I like I said I took Lynch and Von Trier off. Kubrick could be in there too. Fincher could be in there. So yeah, there's there's definitely a lot of them floating around on the outside there. But yeah, it was fun. It was cool. It was cool to see your perspective too on like especially because like you're out making movies too, so to hear like some of the directors that have like directly influenced you is pretty cool too.
But same on your end as well. I enjoyed Shadows in Life, and glad I got it on physical media. I'm gonna have to watch some of your short films. I still have them. I haven't had a chance to get to them yet. But yeah, but I just want to ask, since you're on
Hmm.
the channel, since you're a guest, so do you have anything that you're working on right now that you would like to promote?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, other than like my YouTube stuff, where I'm constantly doing a bunch of stuff, I have a lot of ideas for 2024, branching out of like I pretty much just talk about movies, but I want to branch out and do some other things too. Like right now in December, I'm doing 31 for 31, which is 31 movie reviews in 31 days, going through movies that I bought and haven't watched. They're random number generated picked. But in terms of film, I actually just last night we had friends over. We did a friendsgiving, and we showed me and my wife's new film, New Folder, which is a found footage horror movie that we shot on our anniversary for fun on a whim. We shot it in 48 hours on a $4 budget with a camera we bought like 2 years ago at a yard sale for $10. Um, so we showed them to our friends last night, and the reception was a lot warmer than I was anticipating. So that was kind of interesting. I mean, they're my friends, so but they were a lot warmer to than I was anticipating. So I would like to. I don't know what I'm doing with that entirely yet, but then also. Since last April, I've been working on a documentary on my grandparents and the business they've ran for 60. Next year, 2024, would be 60 years they've ran this business,
Yeah.
and we started working on that in April. I took a couple months, several months off to let the footage sit, and I've been sifting through the footage now, and I'm hoping in January to start putting things on timelines. So I'm hoping to get that out sometime soon, especially for their 60th anniversary. I would like to show it to them. So I hope I can do
Yeah.
justice on their story, but I have no idea if it's going to be a short film or a feature film. New Folder is a feature, technically. It's an hour and 16. So
Okay.
yeah, I wasn't expecting that. I thought it'd be like a 20 to 30 minute, and then when I started putting things on the timeline, I was like, "Wow, this is actually a lot longer than I thought it was." So,
Oh, dude, heck yeah! I'm excited to watch it. For you guys that are watching, that are interested in what I've got coming out, still working on Pesadilla. That's the big boy. Which I'm actually going to show you the teaser when we get done with this video. I'm going to show you the teaser early.
sweet. All
Um,
right, sweet.
and
Let's go.
I filmed a short film on the iPhone. I wrote it in half a day, and we filmed it in 5 hours.
Nice.
See what people think about it. I just had fun with it. It's turning out better than I thought. I had an unbiased look at it with my editor, who's very honest with me about things. And I want people to watch it. I'm not taking it too serious. But this Sunday, I'm filming a short film called The Interview, which I'm very excited about. Me and the actors that I have involved in that. We've been doing rehearsals for almost 2 months, so that's going to be probably the biggest short film done, and I would probably say it's probably more professionally done than Pesadilla. Um,
Okay.
I know that sounds kind of crazy to say, but we're really taking all of our assets and putting it in like a 10-minute short. So opposed to like almost a 2 hour long film.
Hmm. That's cool. I'll unbiasedly say I'm excited for Pesadilla to see what you've done with the budget. And the first trailer was pretty interesting, so I'm pretty excited. I've shown a lot of my friends. I was like, hey man, you got to check this out because I think it's gonna be pretty cool. And Hunt for August Red, considering what you was able to do with the budget you had, was really impressive. So I'm pretty excited for Pesadilla, especially allowing you to have more of a budget to work with and stuff. So I'm excited.
Thank you, thank you. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you want to see another collaboration between me and LR, definitely let us know. Even if you don't care, we're still going to do it anyway. um, but it's great having you on, LR, and best of luck to
Thanks for
all your
having me.
projects. I'm very excited to see them. Yeah, absolutely.
You the same. I'm very excited. So, all right, we good with that then?
Yeah, we're good.